Welcome back to season 2 of The Owner's Seat, where founders, operators, and franchise leaders step out from behind the brand and into the decisions, numbers, and uncomfortable calls it actually takes to scale to be a studio owner, a business leader, and an entrepreneur. This is the show about cash flow, unit economics, leadership psychology, and the messy middle of growth, so you stay in control of your business instead of it running you. Today's guest is one of the most formidable builders in the wellness franchise world. Ali Orleski has opened 137 boutique studios across 2 continents. She's led operational and development teams for brands like Orangetheory Fitness Canada, and in partnership with FSO, helped build the franchise infrastructure for Pause Studios. So impressive. And now she's the operating partner at Momentic Studios, driving the multi-brand expansion of some of my favorites. SweatHouz, Ramsey, here we come. Strong Pilates with a mandate to open over 100 locations in 4 years. He knows what I'm talking about. Ali is the rare mix of operational clarity, franchise rigor, people leadership, and fast scale execution. She knows how to take a brand from a great idea to a national footprint, and she's done it more than once. In this episode, we're going to dive into how Ali has built the operational background behind 100 studio launches, why most franchise systems think they're ready for scale, and why they really aren't. Can't wait for that one. The hardest truths owners have to hear if they actually want their studios to succeed, how to build culture while you're moving at the speed that Ali does, and finally, the financial and operational blind spots that quietly break multi-unit growth. Ali's so pumped. You have a ton of experience. Welcome to The Owner's Seat.
Thank you, Albert. I'm really excited.
My
I've
pleasure.
been in this industry for so long and it genuinely is interesting to build. It's like rare that you get to explain what you do. So I appreciate this. I'm excited to go through your questions and hopefully share some great information.
I love it. And I love that you tee that up. That's truly the premise of The Owner's Seat, and why I started to do this is I wanted to have the real raw conversations that sometimes we have back channel about the
Yeah.
messiness, the grit, the resilience, the failures, the successes. I feel like sometimes, especially with social media, we get to do all of the promo reels and the highlights and the big marketing campaigns that kind of reinforce all of the positives. Yet
Hmm.
we're all chatting about it over drinks or what have you, workouts and mindfulness sauna sessions and yoga,
Yeah.
of how hard this really is. And so you are the expert, and I can't wait. I know the audience can't wait, but we can't wait to hear, how the heck did you do this? So why don't we start there?
Thank you.
You've opened up and supported over 137 boutique studios. What was the
Yeah.
moment you realized this is the work that I'm built for?
Yeah. When I truly think about that question, it wasn't at our 100th studio opening for Orange Theory, which I would assume would have been it because that was such a monumental number for us. It was what we wanted to hit. We had a PR event. We were in Toronto. We had all this media. And like that was the most pivotal moment for us at that time because it was like, wow, we did all this work to get to that number. But when I think about it for me, it really happened at the very beginning. I started as a general manager at one of our first studio in Orange Theory for the Canadian operations in Edmonton, Alberta. I was a nobody and I helped them open a few of their corporate studios, and the owners, with some luck of the draw, gave me some chance to jump onto their corporate team and help launch their first franchise location. And I remember going to, obviously I talked to these franchisees for a year going into them opening their store. So it was always on the phone and you're helping these people out. But going to that studio, being in there, seeing these owners look to me for help, guidance, training, they're excited, inspiring. They're older than me, way more experienced than me at that time. And it was just such a surreal experience that they wanted me to help them. And, we go through the last piece of the construction. It's gritty. We're setting up, we're training their team. And to see their first round of members come through and them service these members and give them a hug and cry and just be like their life, like this life goal of theirs has come true. Truly at that moment, I was like, I'm built for this, because watching someone succeed and be so genuinely happy and you're part of that, it's kind of like a selfish feeling, like you just feel so good. And it really hit me because truly a theme of mine is making an impact. Like if I would say anything motivates me, it's not really the job, it's like what the job does. And I loved that moment, just seeing how happy they were. And I feel like that's what fueled my career because after
So
that,
cool.
it's like you're working with owners to help them be an owner for the first time.
Right. I love that, and that was a big reason I love that about you, and a big reason why I wanted you on the show is this servant mind, right? This servant
Yeah.
leadership that you have to help studio owners, boutique owners, right? Gym owners that are listening to this, and we get to pick your brain today, right? So,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
I don't think it's a selfish thing. I was laughing at that a little bit, but we're going to be selfish today because we're going to pick your brain and steal all of your secrets. But so what was like, what led up to that though? Because I could hear it right now, and in our chats prior to this, you're very
Mhm.
passionate about this. So, what led up, or what was your early experience that shaped the way you structure or set up systems? And how did you
Yeah.
learn this is what it takes to scale operations?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do feel like I learned that pretty I'm gonna say I was lucky enough to realize with Orangetheory, I didn't know how lucky I was with how much they trained me to learn what infrastructure really meant until I left and then started, being with new brands, startup brands, and how much infrastructure really means. Orangetheory did a really great job at the time to really help me learn the importance of that. But it's just seeing how important the infrastructure, clear processes, clarity, like answers to everything, but also creating a team that's autonomous and can actually make decisions and help is so important. I really feel like operations and systems isn't really corporate bureaucracy, which a lot of people think it is. And I get, and everyone likes an ops person. Everyone usually hates them. They're boring. They're so dialed in and organized and all that thing. But it really does help make an impact. 'Cause it's like when everyone knows how to operate the business and they know what to do, how to get it, it already creates like such a momentum in that studio space because everyone feels like they can make an impact to the members or servicing or whatever the business really is. It's frustrating as a team or even as a client if everything's frantic and nothing's dialed in and you can't get information and there's all this friction. You can have such a beautiful brand. It can look great. Design is awesome. You can have a great architect and everything look great. Your product can be great. But if you don't have this system to support that vision or support what a client really sees, it fails and it's costly and it really affects everything and almost like spirals from there. And so I learned that early and I do really stand behind taking the time to do it right as much as it's not really fun, it's not a sexy part of the business. It takes time and effort and cash. But if you build it right, you're the world's your oyster from there. And it's like you can scale, rinse, and repeat 10 times over. It's when you don't build that system and you're scaling on top of rockiness that really can
Yeah.
hurt you. Yeah.
And we're going to peel that back a little bit because the whole premise of the show today as well is those operators, those franchisees that
Yeah.
are thinking about expanding. Should I not? Right?
Yeah.
Or those franchisors that are they live and die by
Yeah.
the amount of licenses that they give out in order to
Yes.
franchise, right? And so what are you showing the market? How is your existing fleet doing? Right? What
Yeah.
does the FDD look like? How is your infrastructure? What do people say about it? And again,
Mhm.
to Ali's point, it's so important that you got your ducks in a row. I see it all the time in finance. By the way, I don't think people dislike the operations squad coming in. It's the finance guys because I'm coming in. I'm like, let me look at your books, you know.
And I
So
think it's the
don't
opposite
worry,
though.
I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take it from you. That's cool. But as I chat with you, right, and I
Mhm.
always tell people when you are operating with a franchisor, is very different than the corporate arena of a studio leader or general manager in that
Yeah.
corporate infrastructure, like team member and employee.
Yeah.
Speaking to and operating with a business owner, those that are listening, they know this and they're nodding their heads. It's like, we're talking different languages. You're not talking at me.
Yeah.
We're working through the business together. And you get
Yeah.
as a coach, as a leader, I get your sense of you're a killer, but you also have this empathetic part of you that I pick up on. How have you leveraged that and how has that been beneficial, your superpower when working with some
Yeah.
of these operators?
Yeah, actually, that's a great question. I always I always think about the difference between corporate and franchising. So, like I was a manager and I had teams in a corporate setting, and then I, became a partner on the franchise side. And I think one important thing for franchisors who are selling to a franchisee, trust is everything because you are asking an owner to represent your brand, but they're not your employee and they need to feel like they are an owner. That's why they're buying into your brand. If they feel like they're an employee or they feel like they're being dictated to down, it's a recipe for disaster because then your creative thought goes away. The whole point of you investing your money into a brand is that your money goes into something and you have the autonomy to build that. And I feel like when you come at an approach as a partnership. We used to have a rule where it's like we never said the term franchisee or franchisor ever. Because as much as that's the business setup, it's like you don't say you have a business entity name. You say what your name is of your business. Like you don't make it that formal because that just creates this bad working relationship. Whereas if you're partners, you're in this
Principal agent.
together. Yeah. And then kind of to your point about the earlier conversation about operations, a franchisor doesn't have to have all the answers and they don't. That's the whole point. They build a concept, it's great. They want to share it. They say what they've done, but the operator and the franchisee has equally as much responsibility to make it work. And they're usually the ones that have to put in the work to create the operating procedures and the systems and that with the franchisor's help. And so both of them have a different angle if they work together in unison and there's this level of trust, integrity. Integrity is huge. If you sell something and you're lying, not intentionally lying, but you're not truthful, they will find out. And when they find out, you don't do any service because they will figure it out. And if there's inconsistencies on initial investment, finances, your support as a franchisor, when they find out, it's like it hurts. You feel like almost defeated. You feel like I just feel like some franchisees use the term icky. They're like, I feel icky because I trusted you and now, I'm not delivering. And so I think integrity in your selling, being open and honest, not knowing all the answers is totally fine because a franchisee is coming in most likely with that assumption. They just want the concept, they want the idea, the brand, and they want to work with you and almost be part of the process. Franchisees that get involved to be like, I'll help you build a process or I'll find a vendor that works here and serves it up to the franchisor and then the franchisor is like, great, I'm going to roll that out to the network. It's like addictive. These franchisors like, oh my gosh, then they're forgiving. They don't care if things, something hits the fan and something goes wrong. It's just like it becomes this beautiful, cohesive environment where you're all in one. And so I've always loved with that mentality. We hate the labels. We're a partner. We're in it together, and we see where we go from there. And it's almost like you bring them in part of the process. They're part of the solution. They're part of the journey. And it's just very rewarding for both sides.
I love that you brought that up because it's a hot topic. It's an important topic around trust and integrity. I
Yeah.
won't go into the brand or brands. Let's just call it what it is. But there's been some news lately over the last couple of years where the SEC comes in and takes a
Yeah.
look under the hood because there's potential
Yeah.
misrepresentation on the FDD. And so for the
Yeah.
franchisers out there, as you heard Ali talk about integrity and making sure all I's are dotted, all T's are crossed,
Yeah.
that's the space that I work in on the finance side is actually scrubbing the FDD, looking at item 19, looking at item 7,
Yeah.
making sure the financials are right, who is on the top quartile, who's on the bottom, and just being very
Yeah.
transparent. When you start messing around like that and you're messing with people's assumptions or perceptions and eventually their money, that's not a great
Yes.
place to be in. And it's a complete brand erosion. We're seeing that in some areas of brands out there, and hopefully they
Yeah.
turn it around. So that's really important. And then just making sure that you're always QOV ready, audit ready. All of these
Yes.
things are super important as a franchisor. But you're right, you don't have to have all the answers.
No.
And you, at your time with Orange Theory Canada, do you have any examples where the actual franchisee brought up great feedback, great best practices? Is that on a
Oh,
monthly
yeah.
cadence, a quarterly cadence, and it
Yes.
actually supported, helped the actual entire system?
Yes, honestly, one thing that, I've learned from franchisors that I've worked with in all brands, actually, so I'll give them kudos to that, but creating a franchise committee at the very beginning, I don't know if you ever the term FAC is, like, always part of the franchise system, but it usually comes late. I find they usually wait to create the committee when there's maybe 20, 30 locations open or whatever that number is to create this committee.
Right.
But when you create a committee at the beginning, which is like this governing body of owners who feel like they're part of the business, which means they advocate for you when something goes wrong, which it always does, or you don't know the answer, they're your people. And so they help other franchisees, they help validate the market, but then they also feel empowered to find solutions to the business or their bottleneck, and then they'll serve it up. And I mean, with Orange Theory, we had franchisees that found us lead management tech platforms, piloted it out, set it up for us, all the texting. We had people find us marketing agencies. We had people find us different equipment vendors that were better, stronger, durable, more efficient, better. Like it's wild realize, like when I think of Orange Theory, at least for the Canadian market, we were a master. A lot of the stuff that we implemented came from the franchise network. And then
Love
the
that.
best thing that happens is then you get to say that and then they say it to other candidates or other franchisees, and it just makes
Right.
you trust the system because it means that we're not sitting here saying we know everything. We know what worked and we know we have a brand, but we want it to work for you and we want you to help us because it allows the franchisor to run leaner. In a sense, it could be a selfish thing too. Like, perfect, our franchisees will help work for us, and
Right.
it works both ways, you know? And
Wow.
so it worked, yeah, it worked well, and I think that's such a thing that maybe franchisors could do earlier versus doing it later because it doesn't hurt you to have a small committee that you run ideas through or they run ideas to you if they're hearing it from the network, and it just allows a lot more transparency and I think trust in the system.
So good, so important.
Yeah.
Great gems there. So let's switch gears. I'm so jealous. You get, first of all, actually, let me back up. Orange Theory, I do want to give them a shout out. Such an
Yeah,
amazing
the
brand.
best.
The Rebound, I'm really proud of that brand because they did take quite a bit of a hit during the
Yeah,
pandemic, but have done a phenomenal job. I have a great relationship. Shout outs to Nasario Mejia at Afterburn Holdings down
nice.
in Houston with Orange Theory. They're doing a fantastic job with talent. I mean,
Yes,
I could say so many great things. So, but I'm
good.
jealous. You get to spend time with some of my favorite brands. I mentioned Michael Ramsey's name earlier around
Yeah,
Strong
they
Pilates. He is a great leader,
yes,
and they're doing amazing work. But SweatHouse, oh my goodness, another
yeah.
amazing brand. Walk me through Momentic. How are you driving expansion across SweatHouse and Strong Pilates? And if you don't mind sharing, what makes, for those that aren't aware of SweatHouse or Strong, I know Pilates is hot right now, but what are the differentiators? How are they scale ready in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, both brands are great. Like I said, like, yeah, Mark Ramsey, Mark Armstrong, they're amazing people. We love them. Both brands, they're still pretty young, but they really found a niche. I think they found, let's talk Sweathouse first, recovery services and everything. We know everyone's into longevity. It's very hard still to this day in many markets to find a place that you can actually go into a very beautiful built out space just for the modalities of contrast therapy. There's all the gyms out there that are modularizing their services and throwing a sauna or throwing a cold plunge. It's the experience though is not there. And what Sweathouse did really well is they took the modality and the service that really is beneficial to the body, but allowed you to almost create like a full mind, body, spirit service because you're in a private room. You make that room your own. You don't have to even use both of the services. You could also watch TV, you could play music, you could do whatever you want in that room,
Love it.
and the customizable piece to it from a consumer standpoint, they hit it on the nail. And it's such a beautiful build out. It's a beautiful service, and the consumers love it. And it's very consumer ready. Strong Pilates, those guys, they come from fitness. They're F45 guys. They know what they're doing truly. Like something that I really like about them, especially because they're a franchisor now, they were a franchisee, and so they have the lens of what a franchisee needs, and that's
Right.
the first experience I've ever had with a franchisor that actually was a franchisee, and so they're so amenable to creating a system that doesn't bottleneck the typical franchisee like they had probably experienced in their past, and so aside from the fact that they created a beautiful brand, they are, innovating Pilates. It's very similar to what OTF did. They created a really cool workout that wasn't a typical HIIT class or a typical, circuit training class. They created something very different than that's not just Pilates. It attracts more of a male audience, which is not there today. So now we have a niche market. We can grab more males. There's a lot more resistance training, weights, and it's cool. It's a cool brand. It's great. And it's an easier build out. So they really nailed it. We're excited to be part of it. Momentic wants to build this umbrella of synergistic brands, health and wellness. And so we chose two that we feel share the same consumer base, which we are finding it does. And so for us, from a business standpoint, it was a smart move because we have a lot of economies of scale that we can network and we can do a lot of things
Right.
together. But we believe in both of the products and we believe in Momentic's messaging. And Momentic's messaging is really to find synergistic brands in the health and wellness space that really deliver better life, higher quality of living to consumers. And we want to build that and bring that out there. And we're hoping that we find more brands that we feel follow that same path and that theme. And that's kind of where we're going.
It's so cool. And I'm curious, I mean, what's your all's vision or approach? I mentioned Pilates is hot. So you got, as you were talking about Michael and Mark and kind of their franchisees upbringing,
Yeah.
I think Camille and Matt over at Body Bar Pilates, very similar, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure they all collaborate. But
Mhm.
we all love the healthy competition. So there's Body Bar, there's Club Pilates, which seems to still be rolling on their momentum for a couple years or so. How do you all make sure that you differentiate enough, the value props there, and stand out?
That's a good question. You know what? For me, I don't know if this is where I think the world is going, but you can tell me if you think I'm out to lunch. I don't believe that there's competition anymore. I think it's just not the way we should look at anything. Because in my opinion, let's just use the health and wellness industry right now, because that's the topic. No matter how big the footprint is of the space, even if we're looking at an Equinox or a 2 to 3,000 square foot space, we're talking like hundreds of members, maybe in the low thousands. We're not monopolizing the world. Not one studio or business can offer services to every single person that would ever need it. So, why are we not leveraging each other's experience, leveraging data, leveraging customer trends to work in unison to create a bigger impact for everyone? Because I feel like the more you're isolated, and I think before, like even 10 years ago, where tech wasn't as available as it was, like data is just everywhere. Consumers have endless amounts of opportunities now that you can get everything at home now. So there's so much work to get in front of the consumer to make you come to my business solely. And I almost think that's just an unrealistic way to think of business. And if we came together and shared all the information, infrastructure, learnings, everything we could, I could not imagine where we would go from a human standpoint, which I think is missing in business. And so I think it's not about the number. There's such a better way to look at things, and it actually would be deep rooted and still help everyone.
I love your perspective, and I think people, especially those listening, would be so surprised. I get to spend a lot of
Mhm.
time with some real prominent leaders in our industry, and they're saying the same things. Now, are they
Yeah.
saying that on stage at a HFA or Beyond Active? Very rare, and I wish we talked about that more. I actually wish some of
Yeah.
these conferences were more workshop related, where we all came together
Yeah.
a couple times a year and just, hey, let's just share, let's connect,
Yes.
let's and do it the right way. Still protect data and some of the IP and all of that, but let's help each other out. I'm
Yes.
curious. I'm gonna have Nathan Scott, not Brian, but Nathan Scott over at Solid Core. I'm gonna ask them that. I'm like, what are your thoughts
Yeah.
about this?
Sure. They'll
See
have a
what
different.
they're
I'm
yeah,
sure not
yeah.
a lot of people are going to ever agree with what I just said, but I don't
I
know.
think
Because
you'd be
truly,
surprised.
the other side, which is more business focused and finance, I just think about how much the game has changed in terms of just strictly labor costs, material costs. The cost of doing business is not even close to what it was 5 years ago, like literally 5 years ago, right? You would know this, you're in finance. So it's so expensive to just open up a brick and mortar studio or just to operate a business with human capital that if there is ways to leverage people in the same industry, I'm not saying like obviously like different industries are different, but like why would we not consolidate where we could or leverage even just vendors, platforms, like even just data, like everyone's buying the same data or using a consulting group to go find a consumer trend for their business, which is the same for the next one. I think that it's just an old school way of thinking, and I hope that there's some time where we can all leverage each other's experience, save like there's economies of scale to that, and all of us can still be so successful in this space because we all have the same message. Like at the end of the day, there's definitely a business we want to make money, but
Right.
really, like even when you talk about the strong founders, there's so much about the people. They have so much heart in their
Totally.
business. You know what I mean? And
Culture,
so like
great.
the more and to your point, what you were saying in that conference, I find more founders are talking more about like, what is my impact? How can we make this work? They're not so hell bent on the competition next door. Cause really, if you feel confident in your brand and you have good integrity, it shouldn't matter who's going next door to you. And if it does matter, then something might be wrong internal with your business or how you're operating it.
I
So
think you're
I don't
onto
know.
something. It's a great topic. I was recently on, and I don't know what happened to me. I think it's called you've probably heard of it, the non-filtered, right? The non-filtered podcast. And
Oh yes.
I had 3 coffees and a ginger shot and a founder shake, thanks, Baram, at Lifetime. And he got me to spill it all out. But I really believe that because of the technology, and I'm very passionate about AI, this gig economy and this usage based consumption and pricing is going to be very prevalent.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of heat on ClassPass, but I think that's just the
Yeah.
beginning. I'm a fan of ClassPass, and
Yeah.
for those that are not going to hate me, it's because those guests, those members, would have never came if it hadn't been for that in between. Now,
Yeah.
the unit economics and the model and the pricing, okay, got it. They could probably figure that all out, but the whole like dropping them. But anyways, my point is, I think usage based, the day pass, as you would call it, or walk in fee or guest workout
Yeah.
or whatever you call it, is going to be more prevalent. I think the business model of
I
this
agree.
ACH EFT monthly is going to change because that actually it's not necessarily, unless you're a power user. Most are only going at max 4 times
Yes.
a month, right? But they're paying
Yes.
for a month's worth. So I think we're going to be forced to collaborate. We're going to be forced
Hey,
to create
exactly.
engagement where one is going to want to go to Strong, then they're going to want to go to SweatHouse, and they're going to want to go to Body
Yes.
Bar, and we're all going to have to communicate on how do we cater to this
Yes.
very transient gig usage base. And the reason why I say that, for those listening, look up Web 3.0, look up LLMs and AI usage based pricing. It looks to and the digitization of currency, right? More blockchain is what I mean. Take a look at that. And I really do think we need to be prepared for and position this industry for that. And it's
Yes.
not overnight, but it's to come. So really interesting points. And I agree with you, Ali, that
I
we
like
need to
that.
be more collaborative for sure. Okay. So franchisor, and you see this, right? Franchisors, they want to issue the rights to who they vetted to be solid operator, passionate about the brand, the industry. We're ready to rock, right? But
Yeah.
then comes site selection, real estate and construction, and just all hell breaks loose, right? So can you walk us through what's the reality for those that maybe are thinking about
Yeah.
jumping in as a franchisee or expanding? Can you walk through just the realities, the goods, the bads, and the uglies of the real estate process and site selection?
Yeah. I think that if I were to give advice to a franchisee who's even just deciding to get into a brand or like which one they want to get into the brand, obviously the item 7, your initial investment is very important. And everyone looks at that because it's telling you truly the key cash outlays that you're going to have to think of to get into a business. And it's all development. The majority is development. And I would say that, real estate today is very hard to find. It is a landlord driven market for sure. And they are asking for a lot of capital upfront or crazy personal guarantees or just it's very hard. And I think the majority of franchisees, their net worth is finite because, that's what the franchise industry attracts as it should, because we're trying to give independence to people like yourself and myself that want to open a business. So the real estate process, in my opinion, does not go as fast as anyone ever says it is going to. And it's strictly because it's not that the site isn't available. It's that it's the Hunger Games out there. And there's very small amounts of good retail that you would want to go.
I love
And
that.
those landlords know that they have leverage. And so to not get discouraged, but also to do your due diligence in site selection and learn. There are so many ways to learn on how to find the right site. What I find that I don't think is the right way to go is there's two avenues. One avenue is go into A plus retail in those big retail complexes that it's a shopping destination center. Unless you are a restaurant or true retail, it's not the way to go at the beginning because you pay so much in rent, you pay so much in Canada, but then you lose out on the consumer's convenience. In our businesses, I'm just going to use my example because this is not for everyone, but like for SweatHouse, even like for any small brick and mortar service based business, especially if you're going and sweating, you're going to be wet coming out, you're not looking hot coming out of those studios. You're not wanting to drive, park, walk a complex with a map to be like, where do I go? Then go into the studio, then have to come out and go and walk all the way around to go back and leave. You add an extra, let's say 20, 30 minutes on your visit because you're coming in and out. If you were in a nice area, retail, like strip mall center retail, where you're commuting to get to and from your errands. Grocery stores are great anchors. You know, nestled, like things nestled into the suburbs where there's homes everywhere around you. That is the way to go. It's not the sexiest sight, but it's better for you as a franchisee because your rent is like payroll. It will never go down. And if you sign a lease 15K, 20K to start, it affects your ramp so much. I mean, you know this in finance, but it's just I just find that's the biggest misconception because everyone just wants to look at the pretty site, but
Right.
that doesn't like you have to understand that no one is walking by our businesses and walking in and taking a 60-minute service or a 60-minute class. They are getting served an ad, they are booking online, they are like doing everything that they can to come to the class. So you don't need the walk by traffic. And I'm probably going to get dinged for this too out there, but like the walk by traffic is not it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It's great to have it, but it doesn't affect the performance of your studio because everything is driven through advertisements, digital tech. Like I don't know what business I've ever driven out of my way to walk into to then ask, like, is this? And am
Right.
I wrong? Am I wrong? But
No,
so I
you're so spot
feel
on.
like that piece, real estate, don't like take your time and find the right site. Don't sign a lease that's expensive. Don't go to those complexes. Go later. You can always infill when you have brand presence and you have cash and you have actually operating units, totally fine. Not at the beginning, because then also construction also is hard because those people with the tenants next to you are going to be your worst nightmare. They're going to say you're loud. They're going to make you do construction outside of hours. You're going to pay longer. Like it just trickles from there. And so
Sound barrier
real estate,
walls, hours of
yes,
operate. Oh
every
yeah, there could be all of it.
dumpsters, try and get a dumpster to be like, it's just, there's all these variables that you don't realize until you get in there. And then you're like, the added cost and time on your construction now adds time to you because your lease has a rent commencement schedule that may not tie in now to your construction. And then things just start to funnel from there. So real estate, I would say, especially first to market, go conservative. Doesn't need to be the sexy site. It can still be great. The demos are everything. Make sure your demos are there. High density, good income,
Yes.
like traffic, all of that for sure. But you just don't need to go to the billboard site right away.
I
And
love that.
with construction, I would definitely say that whatever is being presented to a franchisee, it's not going to likely fall suit and pencil within that range, which is totally fine. It's just an inevitability because like we just said, everything changes every day, especially our economy. The amount of changing just in labor, tariffs, it's just such a frequent change that I think that the true quotes of construction are just hard to even get to anyone. And if you're writing an FDD, it's a yearly FDD. It just the numbers change. And
Oh yeah.
so I would you just plan for contingency, you plan for those costs, and you just make sure that you're not committing to a lease, that you have a very tight amount of cash left to build out. Give yourself room. Once you have proof of concept and you've done it one time, totally game changer, your second, third. And I can't tell you what that looks like because then you know. But when you don't know, information from other people is a nice to have, but it should not dictate how you choose your site or your performa. because it likely will not match. And that's the worst thing, is to underwrite a business financially wrong and then be hooped when you're locked into a 10-year lease.
And personally guaranteeing it.
Exactly. Yes.
That was so good. Oh my goodness. I would call that the holy smokes like segment, because you gave a lot there and it's so
Yeah.
real and raw. You don't see this a lot. You don't see this on marketing campaigns.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't even get this chatter. And sometimes the FDD can only say so much, right? It can only be
Yes.
so long.
Yes. It
But
can only,
this is
yeah.
what I mean by in the owner seat. This is the messiness. This is the hard
Yeah.
part. This is the grit that's required. This is not even if you have the cash, this is
Yes.
the shitty part of the process, right? It is what
Yes.
it is. I
Yes.
love you
But it
broke
can be
that
very
down.
rewarding.
Yeah, if you pick the
It can
right
be so
spot, right?
rewarding.
I love what you're talking about, especially when you're starting off. Are you looking for that massive plaza, the big anchor? You're right. There's so many headaches. Plus, you're going to pay for it. You brought up
Yes.
the word pro forma, right? Are you
Mhm.
modeling a pro forma? Are you building out that budget beforehand? Are you reverse
Yes.
engineering this and looking at your cash flow before you
Yes.
sign the dotted line? Are you looking at your revenue per square foot, your cost per
Mhm.
square foot, all of those things before you sign on the dotted line? What I'm finding, Ali, is
Yes.
no. And
I
then,
know.
yes, you get stuck with the 15 to 20K a month lease with all of these different, the different, fees
Ancillary.
and
Yes.
all of these different, yeah, the landlord's winning out on that, which there could still be a win-win. They could win too, but I'm seeing some aggressive leases
Yeah.
written out there, and it's to protect the landlord, not the tenant.
Yes.
You got to look at all of these things. I scrub through those, and I have some difficult conversations with some of these landlords, and they need you, by the way. They need those sweat houses. They need
Yes.
those strong
And they
Pilates.
want us.
Oh,
They
they
want
want you.
those
Yeah,
rents. Like, we're a good
they're just
tenant.
hustling some people that don't have the financial literacy. That's the real deal, right?
Exactly.
They're
Yeah.
savvy, they're business savvy, commercial real estate, and
Yeah.
you're coming in, someone's passionate about wellness and fitness, has never operated, been a business owner, and they're getting
Yes.
hustled. So your best practices that you share there, going into your ICP, the demographics. I love using this thing called
Yes.
ArcGIS, just understanding where that disposable income is. Is that your
Yes.
ICP that you're looking for? And in many cases, that shiny, very busy, massive parking lot, grocery center, it's
Mm.
actually not the people that are willing to spend $299 on your month-to-month membership. They're not going to do it. It's a
Yes.
different crowd, and you got to find where that crowd is
Yes.
and make it convenient for them.
Yes.
And so I appreciated you going through that. Do you feel like the real estate side is the most underestimated part of launching a new
No.
franchise or studio? What do you think is the most underestimated? That's like, if you don't think about this or plan for it, it can truly bite
No.
you.
Construction. It's
Construction.
construction always, because I mean, the whole part, like construction planning, like permitting is the biggest outlier. It's roulette.
You're in
And
California.
unless you're in Texas,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
I would say
We
Texas,
just
maybe
built.
Florida,
Yeah, yeah.
they don't care. But everything else, no, it's difficult. It's just a long process. And when you realize, when you get into permitting, there's really nothing you can do. Like, you're basically up to the gods and whatever site reviewer is looking at whatever book from the 1800s is flagging something. And it's just funny, because when you get flagged and then you go back to your architect and like, no, that's wrong. And you're just resubmitting things that was already done for them to move through the process. It's just the reality of that business. And so I feel like the time of permitting really hurts people, especially if they underwrite an opening and that's how they negotiate their rent commencement.
Right.
Then everything ties. Like, for us, we're very adamant on tying everything to permits, or trying our best to tie something to a permit, because we can control construction. That's at least a bit more of a finite schedule. I mean, things always push, but when they push, it's not insurmountable amount of time. So when you negotiate a lease, nothing should be like tied to a lease execution date. You got to give yourself time, because all the variables that you can't control shouldn't start your clock. And then I would just say construction costs are very hard to estimate nowadays. I honestly feel like it, because you can estimate it, but then until you start to swing hammers or really get into some of these sites, especially depending on where you live, like if you're in New York City, LA, like these buildings are old.
Right.
The pipes are old. And until you break ground, sometimes you don't even know what you're breaking into. And a landlord has they don't even have the blueprints of their building. They don't even know. And so there's just a lot of variables that I feel like, if you are planning to construct a studio, like true construction, not a second gen space, really adding in a contingency of cash, like just extra cash. And it is always in the line. That's the last line of item 7 always. And it's just having like free cash because you don't want to plan and get a loan or invest your cash when it's so tight. It's just such a variable that you don't know. And I would say that construction costs and what they think it's going to cost to what it actually ends up being is always different. Once you build out, then you know. And once you start to get all your intel, it's so much easier to scale and build. And so like I don't want to freak anyone out. You once you know it, it's fine. And you can always then it's like your world's your oyster. You can go and open 10, 20 locations. You know exactly what you need to know. It's
Right.
just the initial studios. People can give you all the information you want, but you got to plan for a variance because 99% of the time you're going to dip into that.
And what I'd recommend for those out there, and I help people with this, is creating scenario-based models, pro formas, or
Yeah.
making sure you have your sensitivities weighed in there. If this were to drop, whatever, construction costs are actually 10% more.
Yes.
What does that look like to cash flow, timing, et cetera, the pipeline? So it's really
Yes.
important that you're thinking about that. To your point, Ali, do your homework, do your planning, get support on how you build out that pro forma, and then layer in some of those scenarios, layer in some of those
Yes.
sensitivities so that you're
Yes.
prepared if shit hits the fan, things get
Yes.
extended or cost a little bit more, you know what to do. And I've always loved additional options, especially when it comes to your OpEx or working capital, just having some
Yes.
cushion because and people are probably nodding out there. That's one of the hardest parts of being a business owner is you're gripping the steering wheel as you're going back home or
Yeah.
you're up late at night in bed and you're like, am I going to be able to make payroll? That's huge,
Yes.
right? That is not the
It's
fun
so
part of
huge.
all of this, but it's the most important because we're
Yeah.
dealing with people, people's livelihoods. So, is there
Yes.
anything else outside of real estate and construction costs that you feel like and you've seen from a painful lesson that owners have experienced, but after
Yeah.
signing the franchise agreement, is there anything that's popped up where you're like, wow, that's a good learning lesson?
Yeah.
Maybe it was for you or for people that you've worked with?
Yes. You know what? I would say the next biggest pinch point and that I've seen, I mean, it happened to us too, is when you hire your general manager, if that's your model, like if you're, because there's always different. If you're a franchisee that wants to own and operate your business, best model ever. Love those people, always do it. Then you can hire to replace yourself after. It's the best thing you could ever do, but it's not always possible because, especially like us, we're opening up, 10 to 20 at a time. Obviously, we have to hire a team. What I find is when you hire a general manager before you open, especially if it's your first time running this business. You don't even know what the business is and you've never hired for that role. So you're kind of blindly hiring for a role you've never had. And when you think about it that way, you have to plan for that general manager to honestly learn beside you, but to also understand that the lens of what they'd be responsible for before you open literally changes 180 when they open. And what I always find, and it sucks to say, is usually when whoever you hire at the beginning doesn't last and they'll within 30, 60 days, there's turnover. And it's not usually anything to do with the owner. It's just circumstantial because they'll come in and be like, oh, this is fun. I'm not operating a studio. There's no team. It's fun. I'm doing pre-sales. I'm running events. I'm helping an owner construct. They like it because it's like tactical work and they're in it and it's fun. There's nothing
Right.
operating. The minute it changes to something real operating, it's almost like that mindset, they can't flip it and they crumble. And so it doesn't happen all the time. It's just, I would give advice to say, plan for that, and how to plan for that is to just be involved for your first studio. As much as it sucks, be involved because then if you're involved and you lose your right hand, it's okay because you can do it and you'll hire another person. It's probably someone that you've already, like maybe a sales staff is just great and you want to promote them. It's not hard to find the replacement. But I find so many times of franchisees, like I found my A player, they're good. And then all the training, all the onboarding that the franchisor gives it to the GM, and the franchisee is just sitting, overseeing the construction, whatever it is. And then they lose their GM and they're like, what do I do? And your first month of opening is critical. And
Right.
so it happens more than you would think. And it's just, and literally it's happened to us 3 times already. And it's just funny to say, and as much experience as we have, it's still happened. And so that's why it's just something to plan for,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know?
that's so good. Speaking of all the different units, right, these portfolios that you've led, helped build and support,
Mhm.
what have you found? Like, what are some of the variables that have made some of these franchisee studios or areas really, really good compared to the ones that maybe just it didn't work out or didn't go so well? What are some of
Yeah.
the variables that differentiate the two that you've seen?
Honestly, it's gonna sound really simple answer, but it's the ones that succeed are the ones that are involved. And when you can tell, like, I mean, I've been a part of a lot of franchise sales in my past, and you can tell when you sell to a franchisee who's looking for an investment or a return, and a franchisee who actually wants to be an owner. And I would 9 times out of 10 sell that to that owner, even though you might only sell 1 license to that one and 10 to the other guy. Once you it's not hard to sell a license, like, at all. It's just not hard. And so when you sell a high amount to someone who has the money, but they don't know how to operate, then you tie up 10, 20 licenses, they have 1 or 2 studios open or underperforming, and what do you do with that? You've just lost territory that you could resell. There's obviously a benefit to selling multi-unit, and it's easier, and you don't have all these one-off franchisees, and don't get me wrong, there's phenomenal multi-unit franchisees that I personally know that are I could learn from them every day. They're phenomenal operators. It's just the ones that succeed are the ones that actually are involved. At some point, they're not. And there's no point that we would ever say, buy into a franchise and work in your studio 7 days a week for 10 years. That's definitely not anything we would ever want. I wouldn't want that for a franchisee,
Yeah.
but just do it right at the beginning. Spend the time, invest in being there, especially to onboard a team. Leadership presence is everything. If you influence your team by your presence and they love you and they're looking up to you like they are so inspired by you, they'll do anything for you. Like basically your team will do anything for you. And then clients love to know the owner. The amount of times members are like, I know the owner. I want to come see Albert. And they name drop the owner. It just that small amount of impact can let someone be a member with you forever because they feel so special coming there. Because honestly, traditional sales are dead. No one cares about pricing anymore because it doesn't matter. No one cares about a discount. They literally care about how they feel with
How am I
the owner.
emotionally how am I emotionally
Yes.
connected to the owner, to the
Yes,
founder, to the
to
values,
the
to the
team,
culture,
everything.
to the
Yes.
team? You're so spot on.
Yeah.
And I love what
That's
you
how you
said. I love what you said here. You said it's easy to dish out these licenses, right? The rights to
yeah.
franchise. And you're right. However, if you're not vetting for a present owner, franchisee, which is, that's something that you should be looking for, not a absentee absent owner, because we know where
Yes.
that can go. The likelihood that it doesn't do well is probably higher there. And it's not just because they're doing a phenomenal job now. They completely pivoted, but F40 gotten a little bit of trouble with that.
Yes.
They over issue those licenses to people that had no business ever operating
Mhm.
a studio. That's just the
Yes.
reality. While they might have been passionate about it, or maybe they were more of an investor, right? And I'm going to be an absent
Yes.
owner. That's where they got in a lot of trouble. We saw what happened as they were a public entity. So proud of
Yes.
what they're doing now, and I think it's Tom or Todd, the CEO, has done a phenomenal job on what they're doing because they're being far
Yes.
more intentional on who they're issuing it out to, and they're
Yes.
doing. I thought it was over, to be honest,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of a cool case study.
I think it is a cool case study, and to your point, I mean, there's a lot of brands that did that at the beginning. The
Yeah,
the thing that I think is great is just the pivot. It's kind of what we just talked about earlier.
love it.
I mean, actually, I learned this from the owner I work for right now. The owners I work for. I work for 3 great owners. I love them. And they always tell me to assume positive intent. I've never heard anyone say that sentence in my life, and it's, like, stuck with me because it makes such an impact, like, even in this situation, a franchisor did what they thought was right at the time. It didn't work. It didn't mean that they intentionally did something that didn't work,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
then they pivoted. And then when you pivot, it just shows it just shows such a good judge of character to say it's fine to make a mistake. We made a mistake. We analyze. We move forward.
Yeah.
And I feel like kind of what we were talking about earlier, when you build a good level of trust or you have integrity as a person, people are so forgiving. So if you lead with integrity, if you lead with good character, you really can't mess something up because when you
Yeah.
mess it up, it's just the mistake and you move forward and you pivot and your people stay with you and they stay with you through that journey. And there's a reason why F45 still is successful and still selling and opening, you know? And so I like case studies like that because it also shows that there is there's a non-sexy side to business and people make mistakes even with all the
Right.
experience and all the people, but you can pivot and you can change and you can resolve anything. It's like mindset and it's how you led at the beginning to really show people that you're good and that they want to be with you to move the needle forward.
I love that. Such a great example. And as far as the positive intent is in the
Yeah.
mentorship you got in there, that's awesome. I love that. I'm gonna steal that. That's so good. Now, let's go into more KPIs, right? So, and you get to be involved with SweatHouse and Strong, and have experience with amazing brands like Orange Theory. But it just in general, and it doesn't have to be specifically for those brands, right? I want to make sure,
Okay.
we protect all of your internal stuff. But like, as just as a franchisor or franchisee, what are the KPIs that you think are the most important that people should be paying attention to, should have their finger on the pulse?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, as a franchisee, depending on, I guess, what business they're in, but I mean, if they're in a membership-based service model, I mean, aside from revenue, which is number 1, it's like your member retention is almost better than membership sales because, again, it's like it's not hard to sell necessarily nowadays. I mean, you can acquire people through discounts, campaigns, whatever. It's hard to keep them, and there's more work that goes into keeping them. And I think that member retention, if it's not good, shows other things. Like I was trained by a mentor of mine and it was like the easiest way to look at something. I always appreciate. She's like, if gross sales are really good, then they're doing something right. Some of the KPIs that may not be great, or is it really relevant? Do we need to drill down and see? As a franchisee, as a GM, sure, absolutely granular look at, like there could be death by numbers. It's like when that's not good, then look at the second most important thing. And in our business at the time, it was members. And we looked at member retention because if retention's not good, then it can mean multiple things. Is our product not good? Is our coaches not good? Or is our class schedule not good? Is it like there's so many variables that you don't really know that goes into the retention of that member that can uncover a lot of other things. And so it's like training your business on what the top, like let's say 3 to 5 KPIs are the most important, find those. It shouldn't be 14 to 15. You shouldn't be scrolling an Excel spreadsheet to the right. Like it's like death by numbers. And so like for
Yeah.
us, we always like gross sales, membership retention, intro closing for us is really important. NPS score, client reviews, huge. And so I think when you look at the top like 3 to 5, then you can uncover if something's not working, then go deep. If those things are doing
Drill
well,
down.
then keep it simple. Yes.
Um,
From
that's
a
good.
franchisor's perspective, I mean, they're obviously development for them is very important because speed to market is important and you want your people to develop. You obviously want to take that with a grain of salt because you don't want to force people into a bad lease or to open studios where they don't have the capital to even do it. And so like I hope that there's not a lot of franchisors out there, but I don't like the franchisors that just care on license sales and development because your brand's basically going to suffer. It doesn't make sense. But, I would always want to look at how much development is in action. Like, are people just sitting on licenses? Are they actively pursuing? Which is important because you don't want to keep a territory locked for years when you could be selling if there's no intent to open. And then for us, it was strictly sales. I mean, we had a minimum that we wanted every studio to hit for our profitability, but our profitability was to go back to the franchisees, right? So like there's a misconception on royalties. Like royalties feed the business. That's the only way that
It's the lifeline.
franchise work. It is like so, like, we're not just pocketing 6% or 8% to just pocket the cash. It's to keep the business running and allow us to do brand marketing and add support and own the tech. Like, there's so many economies of scale that if a franchisee had to go and pay for every single platform we paid, it would break their model. And so, gross sales are very important for a franchisor and making sure that's there. But I would say that the push on development and making sure a franchisee is still strategic and you're not forcing someone into a bad lease just because you want them to sign, it doesn't help anyone. And if they get into a bad lease, they open bad, good luck developing any other license that they have locked in. And then your studio and your brand in that market is also tainted.
Right.
So that's kind of how I look at it on both sides.
Yeah, I love that. I love the franchisor side, super helpful. And I really like the KPIs that you selected for the franchisee as well.
Mhm.
That's huge. And to your point, I really think 2026 will be an even bigger year around the year of retention. I
Yes.
I see a lot of these boutique studios starting to, and going back to construction and real estate, starting to look for smaller footprints,
Yes.
which means less members more than likely, which means
Yes.
everyone that trits hurts the business even more so. And so the engagement
Yes.
piece,
Yes.
the retention, the repeat, the power user, the community is so important. You
Yeah.
mentioned conversion, right? I like
Mhm.
using utilization. The one I'm going to start
Yes.
keeping track of, because I think the marketing team now has more tools to measure what the hell they do. And that's just kind of like a finance thing. It's like that marketing team, what are they doing?
Yeah.
How's it turning into a dollar? There's a
Yeah.
lot of tools now that is measuring a lot of this stuff, which I love. And so I love
Yes.
partnering up with CMOs now as they look at customer acquisition cost. And how
Yeah.
is that, as you're scaling or thinking of scaling, what is happening to your CAC? What is happening to your customer acquisition costs?
Mhm.
And so I always look at the health of the business at that variable too, which is more of the franchisor, but
Yes.
it's an important one.
No, honestly, for sure. Like I between marketing and labor costs, I think those are really important as like, even a franchise owner to look at because, you know, the smaller footprint, I actually agree with. To your point, the member retention is very important, but it also allows your labor model to be leaner because I
Right.
find labor for sure in our business, it just creeps up and it is something that you need, but you can manage it if you have more systems in place to get those members where they need to be, happy in your business. Your market, then you can spend more on marketing to feed the machine. You don't need a body necessarily anymore to be like the segue between your ad and your client experience, which I think is great. For us, I've seen marketing expenses go up. I do think that's just the nature of the business and how Meta is set up. And I just think that you need to spend a lot more now to get in front of your people. Our CAC is actually reasonable for SweatHouse. For Strong, it's a little new. It's not, it's fine. And I would say in terms of a fitness industry standard, but we've only opened one studio, so I can't really say to that. But one thing that we are really trying to focus on that we find just in marketing in general, we've wasted cash is in grassroots. And so I feel like the old school mentality of marketing, even running a pre-sale, is grassroots events, get in front of people, feed an ad. That's not necessarily a click and buy ad. It's a teaser ad so that they're getting impressions, but then when they come to your event, they close.
Yeah.
And that just
Geofencing.
adds to your CAC. And I don't think it's working anymore because realistically speaking, if you can't consumers spend like I think you lose their attention span within 10 seconds. Like if
Sure.
they see an ad and they can't click and buy or click and book, they're going to swipe to the next one and it's going to be the next studio. So I just don't feel like you need to add additional marketing efforts and cost to acquire a customer either like through your studio while giving them a free intro. Allow transparency and less friction online. Have that ad, have a CRM that is Apple Pay and people can click and buy. It's a great attractive intro offer. Get them into your studio, upsell them in the studio. But I feel like the initial sale needs to be done online. It does not
Yeah.
need to be in front of everyone. And I think there's more control even with AI, that you can make sure that those conversions are so airtight and the communication is so airtight that you might spend a little bit more on your monthly marketing. But when your CAC is down, your conversions are high, and your other costs are low because you're not spending all this extra money in payroll, duplicating your efforts in studio and outside studio, it actually is more profitable and a better performance. And so
I
that's
could
something that
chat.
we're working with. Yeah.
And by the way, I love that you know it. So super impressive. I could talk about this with you for hours. This
Yeah.
is like, it's like music to my ears. I think on the marketing front, yeah, if you don't know your CAC, especially those
Mhm.
franchisors with your brand funds. And by the way, if you're a franchisee, I'd ask those questions. Where is this all going? What's the
Yes.
ROI on it? What's the customer acquisition costs? And franchisors, be prepared. I'd have a monthly, at
Smart.
least a monthly call to talk about, just be transparent about where that brand fund's going, what's the use of funds, and what's the ROI in each one of the
Yes.
campaigns that you're running.
Agreed.
To your point, I think the consumer savvier, they're
Yeah.
scrolling, they're online, they're already doing this research. So you don't, if you don't have that strong digital play, that social media play, that geofence play, and you're focusing on spin the wheel and tablecloths,
Yeah.
you're way behind, right?
Right.
And then being prepared for this agentic flow. Eventually, people will have their agents shopping for them on Amazon and booking classes
Yep.
for them online. And so are
Yes.
you prepared for that on your end? And it's just something to potentially invest in for your
I agree.
future positioning. So yeah, brand fun. I'm glad we got into there. Marketing, that's
Yes.
so important. So I want to switch gears. This is a
Okay.
brand, and I didn't even give them a lot of love at the top end. But
Okay.
Paz Studio Smokes, such an amazing brand. I've gotten to actually learn from many of the franchisee owners lately, and it's just such an amazing culture. You
Yes.
helped in partnership with FSO, right? You helped bring
Hmm.
recovery modalities into what is now mainstream. I mean, recovery, aside from Pilates, recovery
Yeah.
and longevity is like the thing. And I don't think actually recovery is going away. I think longevity will have its ups and downs because I think that's just been throughout human history is how do we live
Yeah.
longer? And, we have our peaks and valleys, but
Yes.
recovery, I think because we're more educated here, we know we need it, sleep and all of the other things that
Yes.
go into recovery. I think it's going to stick around and get even better with science, the science that comes out.
Yes.
What
I
do
agree.
you think is the next for recovery in the wellness economy?
I honestly, I feel like recovery is moving from being a luxury or a third space. We keep hearing this like third space
I thought
word,
that
but
was
I think
Starbucks. Like, was it Starbucks the third space? And now that they're not doing good, it's like, let's just throw wellness in there. It's
yes,
like, sorry,
I know.
Starbucks, you're no longer
Yes.
the third space.
And like I get it because I think when you have so much disposable income, consumers spend likely first on fitness and then maybe, health services where it's like massage or facial or
Right.
beauty or whatever. And then it goes to these ancillary services. But I really do think it's going to become more foundational. Like we're seeing integrated modalities, personalization, like shift from occasional indulgence to almost an everyday necessity. Like it's part of their true routine, and people are addicted to it when they get into that regime. They literally look better, and there's so much science out there. Every biohacker is talking about these recovery services, and everyone wants preventative health because we all know that prescriptions do not help you, and you want to be able to live longer and do it in a holistic way. And so I do feel like that's where recovery is going. I think it's becoming almost like a commodity, and I think it's just going to be people are just going to rely on it just as much as they rely on fitness, drinking water, and sleep. I do think that it's getting there. I think that we have a lot of work to do on the cost. And there's a reason why I said what I said earlier in terms of competition, because truly I do believe that this is the way that our life needs to go. And it's these lifestyle brands that bring sense of, it's not just even the service. We're bringing community, it's mental health. It's everything that we physically need. It's like universal healthcare for the world. And it's just expensive. And so it's still expensive for an everyday consumer, and it's getting better, like places like SweatHouz, like it's becoming more affordable, but it's still not to everyone. It's still an expensive product. And so I really do hope that where the world goes is they see this truly as a commodity, and that there's synergy in all these businesses and there's a way to leverage it. Maybe like you said, like ClassPass, there's all these like cool innovative ways, some passport to get you around healthcare. It doesn't like FSA, HSA, something, so that this can be part of just life. And it is something that we can give because it's not a service. It's medicine, it's health, it's literally life. And I'm very passionate about that. And I do hope that it goes that way.
Yeah, make sure to check out this up and comer. They're out of Europe called Fitual,
Visual.
Fitual. Class Pass, watch out. Gym Pass, watch out.
Okay.
I've been chatting with them. I'm very curious about what they're about to do in the States. So
Awesome.
now you can get everyone Googling them. They're like, why is our website down? And send all these people over.
Yeah.
Um, so Momentic Studios, can you describe it a little bit? Maybe I should have asked you this earlier in this
Yeah.
segment, but I think of in a lot of ways, you're building out this ecosystem, right? You talked about Sweat
Yeah.
House, you're talking about Strong, and those are different modalities, right? When I
Yeah.
think of different modalities under almost this parent company or one hood, I think of Exponential. I think of
Mhm.
their friendly neighbor sequel brands. That's so entertaining, by the way, that whole
Yeah.
situation. Momentic, can you describe? Is it a holding company? Is it a real estate company? Is it a
Yeah.
master franchise? Like, can you explain?
Yeah, it is a holding company. It's owned by 3 people, and they bought into these 2 franchise brands today. We're looking to build a portfolio though, but really the message is to build a health and wellness conglomerate almost like in this space with synergistic brands. We really do want to build synergy because we're trying to build a company and a brand through other brands. Maybe one day we'll create our own, but there really is a message, and it is what I said, like the owners really do have such an invested effort in health and wellness. They're passionate about it. They want to give that gift to people. They wanted to buy into brands that represented something that at least the consumers really can go into, not something super fancy, super big, super like elite. And they wanted just to create this business that gives back kind of what they like for themselves to consumers, but then also to kind of build a bigger purpose. I think that there's also an opportunity for us to honestly incentivize other people to do what we're doing. Like what we're doing allows other owners who maybe want to get into this space and start to really build a brand themselves
Yeah.
with franchise brands. It's an inspiring story. And I think there's a lot of opportunity where I already know the owners that we work for, they share their best practices all the time. They network with people. People call them all the time, being like, what are you doing? How can we share? And I think that there's just like a nice rewarding end to that. But really we're building holding company. We hope to add multiple brands to it. We want to keep building. We want to keep growing. We have the infrastructure, but we want to do it right. And we want to do things that make us feel good and that align with our values. So, yeah.
What I love about it too is it smoothens out the seasonality because if you look at contrast therapy, sauna, cold plunge, it has a different seasonality and utilization swing than does
Yeah.
your classic gym or even Pilates or some type of boutique studio. So I've
Hmm.
always I've always actually appreciated that from a holding company perspective, your portfolio, for
Yeah.
those that invest, right? And you're investing in mutual funds and
Yeah.
individual stocks. You start to spread the risk a little bit, right? You hedge against a bit. And I love what Momentum is doing there.
Yeah.
You're balancing that out, getting good returns and minimizing hedging on the downside just in case seasonality or some type of economic shock.
Yes.
So really cool. Without naming the brands, because I'm sure you can, is there any particular modality or area of the industry that maybe is in conversations at Momentic, or is that vault shut? I'm putting you
That
on the
both
spot. That
that
vault's shut.
both
That's good.
today.
All right, I
But
almost got it out of you. I almost got it
I
out of you.
work for serial entrepreneurs. So he
They're
never
looking.
sleeps. Let's be
I
real.
love
He
it.
never sleeps. And so there's always going to be something out there. But we have enough on our plate right now. So I think we just
I'm sure.
gotta focus on the next 12 months
I
or else
like
I
it.
will fully be
Quiet.
gray. And that's where we're gonna be at. So
Inch wide, mile deep focus. I love it. But it's good to
yes,
dream too. So it sounds like you all are doing that.
yes,
It's awesome.
yes.
Walk me through just your thoughts around whether it's Momentic and you all are investing in this, or you just see some type of a trend current or coming in the AI space within the industry, which historically and
Mm,
traditionally has been very slow to get onto the tech upgrade type of
yeah.
ways.
Truly, like I literally for me in AI and data, I would say it's going to improve so many businesses from making a lot of costly mistakes and also having to overhire to just generate just general business tasks, I guess. Like I feel like AI and the way that we can extract true data out there to understand consumer trends and understand pricing, understand what people want, and drive that through an AI model that might be a lead management system or someone talking and booking a client or selling someone online. The way you can create quality in terms of conversation, cadence of follow-up calls, like just all of that basically the client journey to lead that through AI versus a person means that you know the quality of that journey and how it's going to convert for you versus costly mistakes of losing a lead, not messaging them, having a client say that or a class employee saying the wrong thing. I do think that it's going to improve businesses so much. I think that it's going to alleviate friction. I know that there's still so many platforms out there. I'm not going to say their name, but like core CRMs that have thousands of health and wellness businesses on them, and it's like they're from the 1800s, and it's so
Right.
clunky, and
Yeah.
it causes friction for the client because they can't even register for a class, get into an app, get their username. There's so much friction and it's causing people to leave. I know that happens to me all the time. And so I think AI is incredible. I do hope it still contains healthy boundaries. I don't think it will ever take over the human mind or the human heart. And I think we need to power it. But I think from an efficiency standpoint, a cost standpoint, and just to get true raw data to make accurate assumptions on a business and not interpretations from a spreadsheet that someone gave you. Like, I just feel like you can't really hide now. You can't hide data, you can't hide analytics, you can't hide insights. It's all there. And AI obviously powered that, but it's so powerful. And I think that it really can impact the world. It can help all businesses scale. I think it could help everyone. It's a phenomenal tool.
I like that you bring up the booking platforms, and I'll say it for you. I'm gonna go after it, but
Yeah.
not in a bad way. I'm gonna give one that I really like, right? And by the
Okay.
way, none of these brands pay me. You guys all
Yeah.
want to, that's great, but I don't. They don't pay me or anything. No one's
Yeah.
sponsoring me or anything like that. And speaking of AI and these platforms, the one that I really enjoy, and I don't know if you're aware of them, is Walla. And Laura
Okay.
over at Walla, they just raised, I think I saw what was a $5 million bridge specifically into AI, and
Hmm.
features within their booking platform. And there's some other ones, right? Mariana Tech and ABC,
Yeah.
uh, and I know I'm missing some now. I ran out of my copy, so sorry if I didn't say your name. But anyways, there's a lot of them. They're good, but I'm really liking what Walla's up to. I'm gonna get in so much trouble for this, but Walla
Okay.
is a good one. Anyways, yeah. Okay, so let's
Okay.
get out of that. Let's get out of Albert instigating, and let's get into Ali on the personal side. When you
Okay.
look ahead, yeah, here he comes. When you look ahead, next 3 to 5 years, what version of Ali are you building, refining, working towards to, whether that be leadership or the builder of brands? Clearly, you have a wealth of knowledge. Everyone hit her up.
Yeah.
What are you focused on? What are you excited about?
Oh, that's a hard question because, if if I'm going to be truthfully honest, I hope in the next 5 years, I'll give myself five because it's not going to be before that. But I really, I'm an intentional leader. I told you that at the beginning. And making an impact in someone's life or the world has always like truly driven my career. And the only reason why that drove my career was because I was waiting for an exit for one of the brands I was in to give me the money to start something on my own. If I were to explain that right. And what I would start on my own is a very beautifully created brand that I'm not gonna say today, but I've spent a lot of work on this idea. And it is a social cause and it has a great theme to it, and it's all for mental health, and it definitely is lucrative. It will make me money, but there's also another side to that. And what I've learned in my career and how I've learned to scale businesses and how I've learned to do it profitable, but lean and economical, I want to apply all of those to this business. But truly, I want to be just a more grounded person. I don't want to live in a very frantic environment. And the business that I'm in is very frantic. It's stressful. It's 24/7. And I love it. And I'm very grateful for it. It set me up. I've learned everything I could ever want, but it doesn't align anymore with how I want to be present. And I want to be a leader in a capacity where I build something that genuinely makes an impact and that impact lasts for after I'm gone and that there's something there like a legacy. And I hope that that happens for me and I want that. So
You'll get it, and you'll get it. Let's go
I hope.
deeper. You will, because I could feel it
Yeah.
and will manifest it. But let's go deeper. You mentioned
Mhm.
mental health. Why
Yeah.
there? Give me the reasons, and I could feel it. There's something that's driving you there. Do you mind
Yeah.
sharing why the concept around mental health?
Yeah, you know what? Like I feel like it's just something that obviously you see the world there's so many people that are just struggling with mental health, and I think it's largely due to how this world is changing and it's almost just becoming a non-realistic way of living. It's just like there's just such a hole in this world right now that's not really sustainable for the general public. And I've suffered. I had a really like unfortunate situation that happened to me 5 years ago, and it's what spin this off and how that was handled and how I came out of that and who was around me to help me out. It's just like something I'll never forget. And when something like that I think happens to you, I just can't forget that. Like, I feel like that was, like, meant to happen. It was a purpose, and I wanna do that. I wanna turn that into something bigger and better, and I just think that I'm in the health and wellness industry, and all I see are clients coming in with personal stories all the time. And so, like, when you see hundreds of studios you've opened that have 3 to 400 members each, and you see them and you hear them and you just hear their life, you see so many people struggling, but finding an outlet that makes them happy. And they're coming to your business because they are literally escaping a negative thing. And they're so grateful for a 1 hour class, or they're so grateful for a 1 hour sauna session. It's like when you start to see that, it's like if I were to change careers, like, I would only change careers if I could do something that would absolutely make an impact on what I've experienced, what I see other people need. And that's what drives that.
So good. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for being vulnerable. I like to call it emotionally available, and for sharing your
Yes.
story. This is exactly why I love doing this. The owner seat, it's the messy, it's the raw, it's the behind the scenes that you don't typically see out there, because we're all trying to put our best foot forward, right? That
Yeah.
includes our brands. And so I really
Mhm.
appreciate you just being authentic with us. And I'm
Thank
looking
you.
forward, I could relate in a lot of ways around, and I love to talk about mental wellness. I've
Yeah.
battled in past with heavy, heavy anxiety, not necessarily anymore, but heavy anxiety and panic attacks. I wish them upon no one. And eventually, prolactinoma, or a tumor in my pituitary gland, and have spoken to so many people and now help so many people get through some of that
It's
suffering
amazing.
when you're dealing with mental wellness, because or mental health, because sometimes it manifests physically, and there's a lot of
Yes.
people out there that mask it really well, although there's some tell signs, because I went through them as well. So when you launch this concept, you raise the capital that you'll get. And when you launch this concept, let me be one of your first members. I'd love to be a part of
I
your
would love
journey.
that. You
Okay.
got it.
Hold me to it, though. Hold me to it.
I will
Okay.
hold you to it. Thank you.
Awesome. My
Yeah.
pleasure. And that's exciting. I'm looking forward to learning more. Well, this has been amazing. A ton of
Yes.
gems and practical best practices from for the franchisor. They're
Yeah.
taking notes, or hopefully using a transcriber or something. The franchisee, those that are looking to potentially invest in being a franchise owner, or you're thinking about expanding, Ali just
Mhm.
gave you a ton of feedback, homework, obviously, that you need to do, planning and researching and asking the right questions, having the mentorship and support. So, Ali, such a pleasure. For those that are going to want to definitely reach out to you and continue to pick your brain, or learn more about Momentic and how they can get involved there,
Mhm.
how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, oh my gosh, I would love that. I mean, you can email me. I don't know if you want me to say my email, but I'm happy to do
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Please do. And I'll put
Okay.
it in the show notes too.
Yeah, you can email me anytime. So it's Alicia, my name Alicia at momenticstudios.com. And I would absolutely love to help anyone who has any questions, or if you're interested in buying into a franchise or stronger sweat house, please email me and I'll reach out to the right people that can get you into the brands. But they're really great and I would definitely recommend. So go.
Absolutely. Me too. I
Okay.
recommend them. Those are great.
Yeah.
Great brands. And as everyone knows, I love to spend time on the finance side, whether that's your FDD. Ali brought up, item
Mhm.
7 to item 19, so important, and just making sure your cash flow visibility is present, the whole real estate construction process modeling out. If you're a founder or franchisor, franchisee, multi-unit operator that's needing that CFO level type of support and clarity, reach out to me, or you can find me at strategointel.com, or just find me on LinkedIn. That's another one that I but Ali, so good. This has been such a pleasure. I've been waiting for this, so I
Yeah.
really appreciate you. Thank you. So
Thank you. This is great. I loved this. Thanks, Albert.
yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everyone, this is another episode of The Owner Seat. I'm your host, Albert Ramos. And again, if you missed previous episodes, go take a look at those. Make sure to pause and write some notes down and reflect on what Ali's talking about. But all episodes come out Monday and Friday, so twice at 8 a.m. Central. So I appreciate you all listening, and we'll talk to you soon. We'll see you soon. Ali, thank you.
Great. Bye. Thank you.